Khanna went on Fox News, and he did a segment with Matt Gaetz. Now, the reason he's close with the Republican politician Matt Gaetz is that they've worked together on trying to end war and a number of other things. So here they are talking to giant idiot Brian Kilmeade, and I have to say, Roe was getting attacked on Twitter for this and some other things. Let's take a look, and then I'll respond.
How do you explain how much you like this guy? You told me off camera. You and Matt get along.
We do get along. We work on common issues. We work to get PAC money out of politics. We both believe that lobbyists shouldn't be running this place. We both believe that we shouldn't be in foreign wars. Obviously, we disagree on issues, but we actually engage in dialogue, and we even hang out.
Congressman, I don't know if you know it, but Congressman Khanna did not, Ronna did not support Donald Trump, and you did. He supported Bernie Sanders. When did you realize you could still work with him, that you came into the same class and you can get some stuff done?
Brian, so many of the challenges we face in Washington don't just pit the red team against the blue team. They're generational challenges. How do we ensure that America defeats China to win in the 21st century? How do we build a technical working class of people able to survive? How do we ensure that we don't waste the blood and treasure of our country in wars in the Middle East? And what's unique about this political realignment that I think Donald Trump had something to do with, that Bernie Sanders had something to do with, is that you can actually have right-wing populists and left-wing populists working together.
Right.
And sometimes it is the establishment against the rest of us. Ro Khanna has made me a better congressman because he doesn't take money from lobbyists or PACs. Most members of Congress get most of their money from lobbyists, PACs, and special interests. Because of Ro's inspiration, I'm the only Republican who won't take any lobbyist or PAC money.
And I think a lot of times...
Let me return the compliment to Matt. When we were trying to end our involvement in Yemen, and when we were trying to make sure that we didn't get into Iran, Matt went against people in his own party, in his own leadership, to stop those wars. And if I was just trying to put together a coalition on the left, we would never have made the progress in Yemen. We would have never made the progress in stopping the intervention in Iran. So people said, why are you working with Matt Gaetz? I said, well, if you care about stopping wars overseas, look at what he's doing.
Right, absolutely. All right.
So there's a lot to say about this. Now, Roe was attacked about this on Twitter, and it appears like he's fed up and he snapped, and he basically said in response to somebody, okay, so a 19-year-old from Pennsylvania or South Carolina has to die in a war because you want to be a partisan tribal hack who talks to nobody who you disagree with on anything. Got it. And I have to say, I love his aggression in that response. Yes, I have criticisms of Ro Khanna, of course. I think that his tactics and strategies, along with all the other Justice Democrats, their tactics and strategies in dealing with Democratic leadership is sad, abysmal, if I'm being honest. But this is not an area of criticism. In fact, on this one, I think he gets it 100% right. So, yeah, you can and should work with anybody for your policy ends, even if on other issues these people might be odious. Because Roe's not working with him on the other issues where they disagree. He's working with him on the areas where they agree, where it's his position. His position is ending war. If Matt Gaetz is convinced to want to try to end wars, of course you work with him. Why wouldn't you? Or do you actually care about ending the wars? Or are you just a, virtue signaling, grandstanding, partisan tribal hack? And so they point out, hey, there are many issues that aren't left-right. They're establishment versus anti-establishment. I think that's true. And then, Matt Gaetz says, well, right-wing populists and left-wing populists can work together. Now, here's where I will caution a little bit, okay? By and large, most of the time, the so-called right-wing populists are fraudulent. They are. Josh Hawley, who positions himself that way, was against the $15 minimum wage. All the Republicans are against the PRO Act, which is a pro-union piece of legislation that would help the working class. So you have to call a spade a spade. That's fraudulent. They're being fraudulent. They're not helping workers. There's nothing populist about that. They're fake populists. Now, so you don't give the so-called right-wing populists more credit than they deserve. That's an important point, okay? But when they do actually agree and their actions back up that they agree, then you give them credit, because you got to give credit where credit is due. You got to be fair. And so I have no doubt that Matt Gaetz is in favor of ending the war in Afghanistan. I have no doubts that Ro Khanna is in favor of ending the war in Afghanistan. And I have no doubts that they're fighting against Liz Cheney and, that coalition of establishment Republicans and Democrats that are for the war. So give credit only where it's deserved. And granted, the fake populist right ain't really so populist, but every now and then where they happen to be right, like Josh Hawley advocating for the $2,000 checks, give them credit. Ending wars, give them credit, as long as they actually do it and they fight for the policy. So, and they did on Yemen, Bernie worked with Mike Lee, Ro Khanna worked with, I guess, Matt Gaetz on the Yemen thing. On Iran, they worked together. Great. So give credit where it's due, but don't give too much credit when it's not due. Don't just fall for the pandering and the virtue signaling about how they're pro-worker if the policies don't actually back it up, okay? And then the final point I want to make is this. They bring up, Matt Gaetz brings up that Roe convinced him on taking no corporate PAC money and that's a good thing. So basically we got rid of the corruption. That's half true. It's good that these guys take no corporate PAC money, but the real key to actually not be corrupt is to only take small dollar donations. If you only take small dollar donations, that's the real sign of no, I'm actually not corrupt in any way, shape, or form, and I'm only going to listen to my donors who are the American people. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's any politicians that only take small dollar donations, but there are a number that don't take corporate PAC money, which again is good, but it's really not the end-all be-all in terms of an anti-corruption approach within this current system. So I just wanted to make that point. Anyway, yes, don't be a partisan tribal hack. Work with people as long as they actually agree with you, okay? Sometimes these people on the right say something and they don't really mean it. Like they're for workers. They weren't for the $15 minimum wage. They're not for the PRO Act. They ain't for workers. Nonsense. Total nonsense. But on war, some of them happen to agree and take yes for an answer, because that's the only way you're going to get stuff done. And so to go after somebody for working with somebody who agrees with them on an issue, I'll never understand that. And unfortunately, what people do is the classic, he's like a white supremacist fascist, and so therefore you can't work with him even on an area where you agree, like ending the war. They think Roe is approving of the fascism by working with him on ending war, and I think that that's a preposterous argument, because you're validating him or whatever phrase they use, and it's he's a congressman. He's already validated no matter what Ro Khanna says or does. So if you're actually going to work together for positive ends, Bernie Sanders used to work with Ron Paul all the time on areas where they agreed, like civil liberties and like war and like drugs. Take yes for an answer when somebody agrees with you. That's how you get shit done. But see, again, you have to actually want to get shit done. And a lot of the people who are getting mad at Roe don't care about that. They care about their personal purity and virtue signaling all day, and it's useless.